Hello everyone, this is Steve from SHGP Media. Welcome back to the channel. I did mention the other day I was going to do a layout update on the Abbott Darcy project, but it did go out to a small little show at the Whitwell and Reepham, their little heritage line. They had a small little model railway exhibition as part of their Railway 200 gala, which was all right actually. It was quite busy. There's plenty of interest in the layout, lots of positive comments, which are really nice to hear. Plenty of children say very much enjoyed the layout, which is the whole point of it. So yeah, it was a pretty decent day overall. I was quite happy with it. A lot was done in the week leading up to it. A lot of what I'm about to show you didn't exist a week before the show, particularly figure-wise. All these, what I'm going to show you, were painted in 48 hours, which was certainly an experience in itself, particularly on my neck, of leaning forwards and trying to paint all these with a little magnifying glass thing that I've got. So without further ado, let's show you the layout. So as usual, we'll start down the left-hand side. Since the last update, all the scenic, they're going to do a little bit more, but the majority of the scenic work is now complete. You'll notice next to the abutments on the bridge, we now have the fencing in place. And the road surface itself had to be repainted due to a spillage accident I had with some paint. Which if you saw the last one, you see I was trying to squeeze out a bottle of Vallejo flesh coloured paint, and it had a little blockage in it, and I squeezed it potentially a little bit too hard, and yeah, it went pop and went everywhere, so much so some of it even got onto the layout. So yeah, the back scene had to be a little bit touched up, which is why it's a little bit darker in the top. I don't think that really actually makes that much of a difference. It blends in quite nicely. And yeah, the road surface had to be redone. You can actually see on there you've got a lot of the leaves and foliage, a bit of leaf material and scatter and that all to the side of the bridge where it would collect due to wind and passing vehicle movements. So then moving down onto the actual track work itself, you'll see we now have a speed sign for the Heritage Drive. It's been a very small little line, and it's not sure they're not going to go to much speed anyway, but there's a little one in there anyway. I thought it was a nice little feature to add. The scenery has been winterfied now. Beforehand, where you were seeing it previously, it looked more of a mid-autumn sort of day. But the idea with this was to make it look like a very cold, miserable day in December. And after that, they've basically, because around our area in East Anglia, in the Fens, we don't tend to really get snow because we're at sea level. So by the time the snow gets down to us, it's mostly melted, to be honest. But we do get some quite frosty days. We've had some, actually, there was a period of 2 years ago where it was consistently below zero for about 2 weeks, although it never snowed. And it left this fantastic hoarfrost landscape around here. Look really, really nice. So I was kind of go for it a little bit inspired by that, but have it so it's like a very cold, frosty day. It's early evening now, so the sun has not long just gone down. Temperatures have really dropped, and frost is starting to form on the flat surfaces. So potentially around, like the signal box roof and the walkways and stuff, this frost is starting to build up there. So built into the scatter, there's a lot of originally there were tea leaves in there, which I dried out and then added some paint mix to and mix my own. That was the initial layer, but I've now since then, if I can get some to hand, and we're back. So what I acquired was a few different scenery materials from Green Stuff World. They do some really good stuff. I saw these mentioned. I can't remember the layout name. It's the chap who does some really good narrow gauge modelling. He had used these on his chorus layout, I believe it was. I mentioned about these micro leaves. I thought, yeah, that's fantastic. I'll have a go. Not that dissimilar to the tea leaves, but they are bigger. And so you can get different sort of effect with stuff. But yeah, I thought I'd give these a go. So you've got a natural colour there. We've got a mix of brown. I have some yellow ones as well, which I can't find to hand at the moment, but we also have these white ones, which are basically like your frozen leaves. And so using those made up a different layers, scattering those in. There was some static grass on there. Now I have the again, not to hand, but it's the Warworld Scenics static grass applicator, the one which is it's more control. So it's a small applicator designed to get into more sort of smaller spaces. The issue with it was that the attachment for the static grass wasn't creating any charge when it was passed through it. So when I would go and sprinkle them on, they would just fall through the mesh and just sit flat on the layout, no matter what I did with it. I then went to Scale Forum and spoke to a chap there. Again, can't remember his name. I do apologise. But you'll see him mentioned in the start of the video if you want to look it up. And he does some fantastic scenery work where it would start and he was blending in the landscape in different scales and that as it was going away and using like static grass to give the impression of far distant trees and bushes and stuff. And I think that worked really well. And I was speaking to him about it and basically he was confirming what my fault was, that it basically wasn't delivering a charge. Found afterwards when I came back that the actual applicator itself, that might be the end, is providing a charge, but for whatever reason it's not going into the actual cup where the static grass sits. So I found that if I just sprinkled on with my hands some static grass in various places, same stuff where you put the PVA down and then you can use your layering sprays and stuff, but then just taking the actual applicator without the attachment on and just hovering it near the surface, that was creating enough static charge to bring everything up. And sometimes it would come up, someone would touch the nozzle and stuff and you can just take that off your fingers, but it actually worked quite well as actually raising the grass. So particularly when we come down to this end of the layout, which had more of that, you can see, hoping you can see, the static grass is far more statified, if that is the word. And yeah, it worked better. So it's not working as intended. Hopefully I'll speak to them when I see them at one of the shows, probably it gets, to be honest. And I'll get them to have a look at the applicator and see what's going on, whether or not it's something that could be a quick fix or whatever, or whether I need to get it replaced. But anyway, so that was one of the headaches I had with doing this, but managed to overcome it. There were a lot of already pre-made static grass tufts, which I already had placed down in this area anyway, mixing a few other ones. So we had the actual winter ones from War World Scenics. Those were applied, and then there's a lot of dead grass ones in there as well. There is some so there is some of this forest ground cover, which gives the impression of your twigs and your branches and stuff scattered in there. And yeah, just having a play really, no sort of defined rule of just gradually laying up a little bit at a time, then spray some more static grass layering spray, have a look, see what you thought, and then have a go over top of it. Mixed in with that as well is some of the actual some of their 2mm snow scatter, only very small amounts, just little pinches of it just sprinkled in there, and it kind of give that little sort of like white tint on top of stuff. So particularly on the grass here, that effect came out quite well. And then mixed into that as well was some of the Army Painter Battlefield Snow, which the best way to describe it is like very fine sort of like bicarbonate soda. But when you say you sprinkle it on, it stays on there. So try to find an example of it. Probably one on this end. On the actual canopy itself, it looks like a very small amounts of snow maybe are falling on there. So to give that sort of effect, so I don't want to have it as a snowy day, but maybe a little bit falling in there. And it was just a mix of these different techniques of building it up. Which I was more than happy with. So I've blended into the actual track work and the ballast as well. I'll stay with the scenery side of things. So actually on the track work, down where the locos would sit, the track work was weathered with some black weathering powders in there. There's a lot more rust weathering powders have gone into that as well. And again down at this end as well, where locomotives would sit, about it being weathered down there. But we'll come on to more of that board in a little bit. Right, signal box. A comment was posted on the last one that they thought they didn't have a signal box because I was holding the try again. A comment was posted on the last video that they didn't think there was a chimney fitted to the signal box because of the angle which I had it at. You see, no, there is very much a chimney. It is there. It's around the back for the stove. And inside there we have the flickering stove on the far right corner. Now, I'm sure some of you will have noticed that the visibility through those windows has kind of decreased quite a little bit. Reason for that is the Muppet here was spraying the static grass layering spray forgot to mask the windows, didn't I? So obviously I've sprayed black glue surface onto the perspex. In reality, it does make them look a bit more fogged up, so like condensation is built up in there from the hot stove, which is going in there. So in some ways it does make it a little bit more realistic, but it is frustrating that with all the fine detail work that I did in there, particularly say with the notice boards, the posters, there's a little kitchenette in there, there's a desk, your token machines, all that is all in there, and you really cannot see it anymore. There's some angles, particularly from the side, where it didn't go on as much. In person, it's not as bad as it looks on camera. Your eyes are usually better at focusing than this little phone camera is for picking stuff up, and you can still see it, but yeah, it's just a shame that it happened that way. It's lesson learned for the next one, really. When I put in the lights as well for the signal box roof, I put them in a way that basically means that it can't be taken off unless it's going to effectively break the lights. So again, lessons learnt there about not leaving enough slack in the wire after I attached it to its power thing around the back. So yeah, more lessons learnt really. Weathering wise on the signal box, I said the walkway was all weathered up. You can see there's a handrail around the windows that's been put in place. And then you've got your leaves from the safe. Obviously, got the tree right next door to it, obviously falling in the gutter in and starting to block all that up. So, as I very much know in the real world, the pain in the backside it can be with nearby trees blocking up your gutter in and causing issues. That's replicated on here. And then obviously like your steps and your walkways and everything around into the signal box have all got the leaves where the wind has blown the leaves and it's all collected and stuff. I tried to replicate that on the model as well. And of course the idea with this, if you didn't know, was that it's a heritage line in its first year of operation, and the society who opened the line initially had acquired this signal box, hence why it's in much better condition. The signal box itself is not actually connected. It's not a working signal box at the time of this railway. In later stages and with a later project, which I'll be coming on to, and I'll mention a bit more of that towards the end, the signal box does come into use and gets connected up. So at the moment, there are no pulleys, there's no wires, there's nothing in there coming out from the box. Now we have the signal right next to it, but this is a derelict signal, and I've tried to show that as best I can by weathering the rust into the actual signal pole itself. Weathered up the ladders going to it. I tried to find lots of different photographs really of different sort of derelict signals. And as you always, you just get lost in this quagmire of different photographs that never actually give you exactly what you want. But I found a couple that kind of look like this, and so yeah, that's what I went for, replicating it. As being said, the derelict signal waiting its turn in the restoration queue. Next to it, we have the store building, which they store the tools and stuff. I did do a visit over to Trains for You, and in their box of second-hand stuff, they had a couple of little bits and pieces, and within those as well, I've got a quid, I think it was 2 coal bunkers. I debated putting one down in this area, so basically if the locos are down this way, there's somewhere where they can get coal from if they need to top up, and the signalman can also go and get some coal for his stove. In the end, decided that I wasn't going to do that, but what I am going to do instead is place some bags of coal down this area. So with coal being a bit more valuable these days, instead of just leaving it left around outside without security, they just have some bags which they just bring over on the day, place around. Because the locos running on this line are only really sort of small industrial sort of locomotives, not really big Pacifics or anything. They don't need huge amounts of coal. And like a lot of the railways which I've seen, I'm trying to think of some like the Rocks by Rail up at Cottesmore have a little coal stage, but most of that's all done from coal bags anyway. So one of the jobs to do is to make up some coal bags. I'm not going to bother buying 3D printed ones. I can just make those out of green stuff or milliput or something, paint those up and weather them up and place them in, and they should look well in place. And there's also going to be some other little things like a ladder and some buckets, basically fire buckets and stuff placed down this end as well. So there's a little bit more details to add, but it's mostly complete now. The water column was all painted up and weathered up. I replaced the actual hose itself with a bit of shrink wrap, which they turned out okay. Again, weathered the drains around it as well. Now, and then coming next to it, you have the fence, which is to separate the public areas away from the actual staff areas, very similar to how it is at Holt on the North Norfolk, where they have little fence barriers towards the end of the platform near where the water column is. There's a gate there for staff to go through, and then the public and passengers can stand by and watch the locos being watered up and everything. And yeah, that's what I went for with that. But before we go on to the figures as well, I'll mention as well some more of the scenic stuff down this end. So since the last update, I put in the wire fence. This is another Wallwood Scenics product where it comes with the laser cut posts and the wires. Really easy to do. I quite enjoyed it. It's one of those I thought was potentially going to be a lot more fiddlier than it was. But so I started down this end because, say, with it being on two boards, as I've got the gap here, so I've basically got a fence post on each one where it goes to. Started small with this end, placing the posts at the height I was happy at, and then cut off a length just a little bit longer than what I needed, so I didn't have to worry about having to try and move around large pieces of wire. Got a little bit more control, fed those through, put on the super glue. When that was all done and set, then come all the snippers and just snip off the ends. Job's done. Really easy to do. The slot was all done in one piece, which again, it wasn't that hard to do at all. I have to use my little magnifying goggles to be able to see what I was doing. But yeah, I was going to say quite easy to do. I've been old. A lot of it's still quite derelict railway. This is an original fence, so it's all weathered up and rusted up. So there's rust effects went onto there to weather up the wire, and then a little bit of dry brushing with some white and some of the clay whitewash as well onto there to give it that frosted up effect. And again, turned out quite nicely. You'll see in the previous videos that down this end there was just a little bit of ferns and a little bit of lichen, which I'd placed on there, which was the start of it. It's all still there, but it's all nicely blended in now. So a lot of the Green Stuff World micro leaves gone onto there with some of the bushes. And then you've got the static grass tufts as well, the actual static grass itself. One of the bigger areas which I did static grass wise was obviously down this end where the buffers are. Those who obviously have been paying attention will notice that is a completely different buffer stop. This was the previous one. So that's the Hornby buffer stop. I got that literally the day before it went to its first exhibition. I needed a buffer to go down that end, and I was able to acquire one at the Market Deepings exhibition. Went on last minute. It hadn't been painted up and stuff. I did try and paint it up. Well, I say try paint it up. I did paint it up and I weathered it, and I was not happy with it. I thought it looked a bit naff. I couldn't find any examples of any buffer stops in the real world that actually match that. So I was basically thought, no, I'm not happy with it. I'm not going to spend the time and resources and money which I have on this layout and then have something which I'm just not happy with. So I managed to acquire from Great Eastern Models a Pico buffer stop. Looking at, I watched that Model Railway guy's video where he developed, basically brought out a lot more of the detail on those stops. And yeah, basically if you're interested in how that's done, basically just look at his video. Used acrylic paint pens on this, which worked really well actually. And then yeah, it's round it, you've got a lot more of your dead grass, a lot more tufts in there, a lot more leaves where it's collected and stuff and rusted up and weathered in, and that turned out quite nicely. So next thing is what we're going to cover is the main station board. Now you'll see that has changed considerably since the last update. We'll start with a negative, shall we? So previously, I can't remember if I mentioned this in the last update or not, but anyway, for the sake of it, we'll go over it again. Originally, there was just the one set of fairy lights, and they came down this canopy and then came across to this light, and that was it. It looked okay, but I was not happy with it. I wasn't happy with the length of it. I thought it just didn't look complete. It needed to be a full length along the whole of the station area. And the other thing was that because it came from this end of the canopy and went across to there. I mean, let's work out. I mean, you're looking at about at least 5-6 meters, maybe more, the gap I think there probably is more than that, of which you just had these lights just suspended in the air, just hanging there. And I thought you would get one hell of a droop off that. So I just didn't think it was realistic at all. Found that if I then took that off and then run it down the side, I had to pull it a little bit that way, but it basically was the length of the canopy and then down to the end of the station toilet block. So I thought, fantastic, right, that's the plan, we'll do that. Put one in there, acquire another one. Tried to get hold of another one from Layouts for You. They were out of stock online. So it went over to the Loughborough Model Railway exhibition right next door to the Great Central Railway. Brilliant exhibition, by the way. Shout out to them. And Layouts for You were in attendance. And on the shelf, he had one bag of these fairy lights. Not the flashing ones. He had some more flashing ones in stock, but he only had the one of the standard continuous solid light. I was like, brilliant. That's what I need. I'm happy. Got those, installed them. I put a picture up onto the channel itself in a post showing the lights that done. That lasted 24 hours. The following day, I went over to the Hobby Hub. Again, fantastic resource in the Peterborough area. They've been brilliant with helping me producing this, particularly on the woodwork side of things. And I was doing more soldering. The idea was that all of the lights on here I was going to add resistors to for the 3-volt ones, and then wire it all in to go through this 12-volt power supply, which is connected around the back, which is wired into this here. As I was doing that, I was moving it around on the bench, and on the bench was literally the tiniest of nicks. There's a little bit where it was just poking out where it could catch. And if you actually look at, I don't know how well this is going to come out on here. So what I've got there, they're the individual wires for each of those grain of rice LEDs, and then they get tangled up into a bundle. These two caught on said nick, and all it needed was the tiniest bit of pressure and snap, and that's gone. The whole lot is now dead. So that was, I think, 16 quid of lights. Lasted me 24 hours. Gone to get another set. He's now out of stock again. And he's not been at some of the shows recently. And I've not been able to get hold of another one. I did see the other day he now has some back in stock, but he's currently not taking online orders. So second he does, I will be submitting an order to get that replaced and have this on, and then it will finish it off quite nicely. So all is not lost. It will get done at some point. It's just, it was just really frustrating. That's what happened. But to add to that frustration and to compound things even further, when I connected up the Christmas tree, this is a 12-volt Christmas tree, to the 12-volt power supply, it exploded, literally exploded, with a very loud pop and orange light and a little bit of smoke, and is now completely dead. So again, that is another thing that needs replacing. Don't know why that happened. It was using the power supply of which it was designed for. So that was just a very frustrating day. Kind of felt like I'd taken a couple of steps forwards and far more steps back with doing that. But it did encourage me to, instead of putting it all through the same power supply and that, to have things individually. So what we have, instead of me putting resistors onto these the lamps and the small little lamps which are down underneath the canopy, you see there, and that one at the end, they go into their own 3-volt power supply, which is one of these holders on the back there with AA batteries in. So there's one set powers that lamp, another set just behind here powers these ones, and then these two are off their own around the back. So if something was to happen and there was a surge or something, or something had gone wrong as I was doing it and it caused what to blow out, I wouldn't blow out the entire lot of lights. I would blow out only these two, meaning a much cheaper replacement than having to do the entire lot again. And so far, all been, say, touch wood, it's all been well. That has worked out fine. The signal box is also staying off its own 9-volt battery, which you can see in the back here. Ignoring the mess of wires at the moment, which is tidying up, you just connect that on with its little clip, and then that powers in, and then that powers up both the lights inside and the stove, flickering stove in there as well. And I found when I did the exhibition at Whitwell and Reepham, the battery lasted for the day. I was quite surprised how quickly it went through it, but so they all lasted fine and all was well. So yeah, I was happy about that. As well, little details that have been finished off. We have the guttering is all done now. That I say around the canopy, say where it runs down, collects in the thing, and then runs down to the back. That's all based off real world examples. Same as the guttering that down the bottom end. We have, just trying to think what else I've done. It's going to be quite difficult to show you. Underneath there, I'll see if I can find a picture and I'll put it up at this point. But under here you have the platform 1 sign, then under here you have the booking office sign, and then under here you've got the waiting room sign as well. So there's little details added onto there, same as these ones here that have the toilets on it as well. And then you've also got a little sign down here which says beware the trains, with a little warning notice. So those were the details that have been added to the station. I don't think anything else was done since the last update. But staying with other station details, so the phone box is in there. That's actually just a Gauge Master off the shelf one I picked up from, I think is it Philips Models in March. One that opened up quite recently. I popped up there just to have a nosy in there, and also then I had to make sure I did buy something whilst popped in. So yeah, I grabbed the phone box. And then the little post box on the end as well. Look around at things that I've researched recently, spending ages looking around at different station builders, trying to figure out where generally they would put the actual post box. I found some examples on the Severn Valley which showed their post box basically put on the very end of the station building. I guess that means easier accessing for when it's not open or stuff, so the postman can get in and out and collect those. So that's in there. We've got the bins in place. So we've got a bin there, a bin here, and another one out on the platform. They are, I think they were Tinker's models, 3D printed, bought on Etsy. We have, so we've got the benches in. They are just Pico benches. They're a bit naff and cheap. If I have anything, I would recommend, if you want some benches for your platforms, go and get some 3D printed ones. Far better detail, and to be honest, they're cheaper. I got those because I needed some benches very quickly. They have a lot of flash on them. If you don't know, flash, that's just extra plastic that has gone from the moulding process, where it's going to spill out, and you have to like trim it off and tidy it up. And yeah, they're just not great. But for the sake of this, where it's something which is just hidden at the back, you can't really see anything, and I've got people on it, you're not really going to notice. But if you wanted something a bit more refined, yeah, you can get some really good 3D printed benches. I certainly recommend those. I think probably Tinker Models do some, and there's loads of other ones on Etsy and eBay, which I would encourage you to have a look at. As well, on there, like a lot of many heritage railways, you have the luggage, the sack barrow, the weighing scales. Actually, at Whitwell and Reepham, they had a set of scales almost identical to the one which we have here. That one, these were Scale 3D, I believe. So I think that's actually an Inoxian product sold through Scale 3D. Those actually, thinking about it, may be Tinker's off Etsy. I'll have a look and see if I can find the links, and I'll put them in the description if I remember. If I haven't remembered to do that, just drop me a comment and let me know, and I'll square that away. As well, out here, some other little details which people don't always see. I've got some generators. They, I believe, were ordered through Scale 3D. We've got one powering the Christmas tree, and then there's another one which I painted up red, which is behind the tea and coffee stand and the hot roasted chestnuts, basically powering up their coffee machines. Down this end, I was going to have this food vendor using this hut. This is a scale model scenery Christmas stall hut, which actually came with the backing scenes that they have to decorate in this. So actually what are inside the Santa's grotto on the back, so everything was kind of used. The plan was I was going to have this kind of here, and then the tea coffee into the side, and the hot was sit to that side, and this was going to be done up as a hot food vendor, basically burger vendors and stuff. And there was I had a light up barbecue which was going to place in there and do a little kitchen area and everything. I ran out of time to do that, And to be honest, that didn't turn out to be so much of a bad thing, because when I actually then placed the tea, coffee and the hot nuts, chestnuts and the figures into this area, actually turned out to be quite busy. And to be honest, I don't really think there's room now to place in another food stall in there. I may consider it. To be honest, I'm probably just going to leave it as is now. I don't really want to keep faffing around with this project for too much longer, because I want to start getting on with the other layouts I want to be doing. But as I say, I'm happy with how it's turned out so far, and I hope everyone else is as well. Before we get to the figures as well, down this end we have majority of the stuff on here is Scale 3D or eBay. There are some Model U figures on there. There's a Model U me. I am in the range. Social media personalities, I think it's under SHGP Media. I've got my digital SLR camera round my hip on its strap, and then I've got my video camera in my hand as well, and I've basically got the vest on, which I used to put all my cards and my batteries and everything. I'd say it's obviously being a little bit biased, but if you wanted a photographer or particularly a videographer to go on your layout, it's a pretty decent figure, I'd say. Obviously I'm talking about myself here, but yeah, I was really happy how it's turned out. I do have to hand, let's have a look, say to hand nearby, so you actually see it a little bit more detail. This is the O gauge version. At the moment, it's only being primed up, and then I put on the first flesh colour, which is far too light. It needs to be darkened up. But you can see, as I say, it's got my digital camera, my SLR camera on my hip, on the strap, which goes round up from my neck down to my back, and then you've got the video camera, which apparently people seem to think is a very professional piece of kit. It is not. It is a very mid-range Sony AX53 video camera, used by quite a few of us who go around and film at exhibitions. Actually, it's a really good little general purpose camera. It's not amazing at anything, but it's pretty good at all the other things it does. So yeah, so that is a figure you can pick up, say, from Model U. Aside from that, yeah, it is me. If you were so inclined as to wish to have me on your layouts, but if you just wanted to have a videographer, that actually is a bit more accurate, and instead of having like a massive video camera, which is some of the figures have, which is a little bit out of date now, that is something which you can acquire. As well, I mentioned at this stage, so next to me is a Bachmann figure. Now I might do something a little bit on these separately. So you've got that one here, this one, and this one are from the Bachmann station staff set. Now, all these figures on here I've painted myself. Apart from sorry, I'll correct that. Let's be accurate. These little tiny ones here, these are I think they're Fowler figures, HO ones off the shelf. They're the only figures you can get of children wearing winter clothing. It's ridiculous how small the range is for that. Those ones came pre-painted, and these ones too as well. The quality, when you look at these up close, isn't amazing, and for what they are charging, I would have expected better. For example, everything's just black tacked down at the moment. Let's see if we can focus on this guy. For some reason, this guy's shirt covers his chin and mouth. I sat with mine, and it didn't take long to paint these up. I don't exactly have the most stable of hands, but I was able to paint up my face and paint up the shirt and not somehow completely mess it up, so I was therefore painting over people's faces. Now I'm going to have to, because it would bother me and I know it's there now, I'm going to have to go and correct that and repaint it myself. I kind of feel, for the cost of what they charge for these figures, I think that's quite poor. But that's just me. You guys might think differently. But yeah, so that, say, is sort of like the quote top of the range pre-painted figures that you can buy, or you can go and get something from Scale 3D, get a huge range of them, a lot cheaper than other companies out there doing 3D printed figures. And yeah, within a short period of time, you can have these painted up. Now, most of these, the majority of the paintwork done on them is with acrylic pens. In fact, I will show you them. Okay, so first up, we have this set of paint pens here. I'll post a link to these again in the description. These were bought on Amazon, and I think it's like a tenner or so. And the way these ones work is this is the end of your pen. It's basically solid plastic on the end, and you press down onto the hard surface, and it basically fills up a small little reservoir, if that's the correct term, inside the actual pen nib itself. And then you can then draw out really small, really fine lines of paint. And that's shown on the bins there. The gold lines around it is with the gold version of it. They're pretty good, but they're not really good for getting covering like large areas and stuff. You end up basically just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it does blend in quite nicely and comes out okay. The range of colours in them is okay, but it's not hugely extensive. And I found when I used particular colours like the bright red, when I tried to paint Santa in particular, the colours were coming out more pastel coloured than actually sort of like really bright. So again, went on Amazon and got this set, which was again about £10. You have metallic colours here, which go into your pastel colours, your greens, your blues, purples into browns and yellows, and then on this side going into yellows, your oranges, your pinks and your reds. So huge variety of different colours to use in this. The pens are you've got basically two different ends. You've got what they term as the brush end on this end and the fine end on this end. When it says fine, it's basically referring to the fact that this is very hard. So when you paint, you can't get that sort of, way to describe this. So that kind of like fine sort of line. You can't get into small little recess areas with it because of how fat the actual nib is. I would find I would then get a lot of I'd basically end up getting paint onto bit parts of the figures that I didn't want it on because it was touching the side of the nib and stuff. Whereas the brush end is you want it for the same color, but yeah, same color, gets much better, and it's much better for painting in large areas and stuff. These are really good. I was really happy with them. The amount of time I've saved through using these paint pens, I mean, we're talking hours here. And instead of having to do everything basically using normal acrylic paints, putting out the little bit of colour into your palette, having to either use a wet palette to stop it all drying out, and then having to mix your colours again, and then cleaning your brush between each colours, and none of that. We just quickly get these on, get the colours on, and then that was all sorted. When it comes to doing like the smaller areas, then yes, I would then get a very fine paintbrush with a very fine tip to be able to get into there. You can just take the actual paint. It's a bit like how I've just done there, and just rubbing some of that onto the actual paint palette. Well, it's still wet. Take your paintbrush, take off that colour, so you're not having to worry about having to try and match your colours and stuff. And then just painting on the details and stuff. And that allows you to do like things like so like you look at your carol singers, you've got your hats and stuff and the fine details on those. The children have got like their shoes or their wellies are painted in ways. I'm able to like the strap of the accordion player, say, will be done with the paintbrush in itself, and things like the in fact the scarf at the back, that was done actually with a paint pen. So I have more enough control with that. Same with the celebrity cameo, Sheldon Cooper. His t-shirt was done with the acrylic paint pens as well. So yeah, very happy with those. I'd highly recommend having them. I wouldn't say, I'm certainly not saying they are a replacement for doing things with a paintbrush and paint as you would do with normal figure stuff. It's just a tool to add to your palette, really. And when painting these, it certainly just helps speed things up and get things done. Now, the figures, we have a whole load of these. Every figure, bar one, this guy, has a backstory which I have for them. This guy, I don't know yet. I'm not overly happy with it. I'm not sure if his dress really matches for the time of year or something. There's just something about that figure which I'm just not happy about, and I can't quite link him in with anyone yet as to why he's there and what his story is. So I'll do this. If those of you might have seen the live stream I did at Whitwell and Reepham, you can hear me talking to a family whilst they were looking at the layout and I was explaining to them. So some of you might have heard this already. So basically what happens is at the Santa Special, people arrive and they come in through the ticket office, and then they go round to Santa's Grotto to go and meet Santa. Around there, the first thing they would do is they meet the staff member. It's not the best easy to see with this at the moment, but a staff member in there with a clipboard with the details and stuff, and then he checks people off when they arrive for that day. At the moment, we've got a lady. She's arrived with her daughters. She's got tickets, some gold tickets in her hand, which she's showing to the staff member to get herself signed off, and then to go in and meet Santa. And then I've mentioned in previous updates, there's a Fowler Santa figure in there handing out presents to the children, and there's put the Christmas decorations on the back and stuff. So if you're able to actually look at this in person and look through, it's much easier to see. Does not come out well on camera, frustratingly. But yeah, and then you've got your lights in there, your red and your green lights to give that sort of like Christmas sort of effect. Now, when they come out, you have to imagine, at the moment, imagine the table is inside the grotto building, but I want to basically put a table out here with this staff member, and it's going to have some Santa hats on for the children. So the idea is you come when you arrive, you go in, you meet Santa, you get given a present, and you get given a Santa hat. These are like your cheap Santa hats you pick up for like £1, £2 or something like that. It's a minor expense, but something that the children would appreciate. They then get their Santa hats, and then they go on board the train and go go for the ride on the railway. So you see the children who are wearing their hats have been and seen Santa. In the queue, there's a mum with her son waiting to go in, and then there's a dad with his little lad holding his arms behind them. So there's a small little queue of people waiting to go in. Sat on the bench behind them, we have the teenage twins who are not interested at all in what's going on. They're both just sat on their phones. About the whole thing, about one of the reasons why this is called Abbott Darcy Together at Christmas, is about the fact, say, like I say, Christmas, everyone comes together, families come together, friends come together, that sort of like the spirit of the season, spirit of the event sort of thing. And I've tried to also make it so that people of all walks of life feature on this layout. So we've got people of all different ethnicities. There's as well as just white. There's black and Asian figures on here as well, who are not literally just a case of me changing the paint colour as you would with most figures. These actually are accurate models of people of that ethnicity, and you can see it in when you're actually able to look at them up close. You can see it in their faces, the way they're built, and their features and etc. So that's all included. We also have all different age groups in here, from toddlers, which is down that end, down to your elderly people, so like the elderly ladies who we've got sat down on the benches here. So everyone is kind of covered for. The only things I can't get are figures of babies. I can get some like small children being held, but you don't really see babies, and pushchairs. Pushchairs are a nightmare to get hold of. There are probably I've seen about 5 different ones that exist. All seem to be made by Fowler, and all of them are babies in the summer. So I can't have a child in a buggy going around in maybe just a shorts and t-shirt on what's meant to be a below zero freezing cold evening in the middle of December. It just doesn't look right. So that's not on there at the moment. But what we do have are things like disabilities is included as well. So the station has disabled access, and we have at the moment we have the one lady in a wheelchair. I do have some other figures of these are elderly gentlemen in wheelchairs, Probably won't put both out on there, but I might put the other one out to do. There's a couple of other figures I need to add, but again, these are all adults. Trying to get ones of children is just so difficult. So yeah, please a shout out. Anyone who does scale 3D products, Model U, please put some children in your range. Please expand the range of people who are in much more winter clothing. Not everyone is in the summer running around as if it's like 20 odd degrees. Please, begging you, do these figures for me, otherwise I'm going to have to make them myself and buy my own 3D printer, which is going to cost me a fortune. But anyway, so continuing on down this end, so we've got the families who have already been to see Santa. You've got the chap here who's got a camera. So you've got the ladies who are sat down there at the moment, where the gentleman's bringing them a cup of tea. Outside the gift shop, frustratingly, I forgot to put someone in the gift shop. It really bugs me that there's nobody in there, but there is a gift shop in there. We have the gentleman stood around outside the ladies' toilets waiting for the other halves to come out. As anyone will know, blokes usually go into the toilets every night in like 30 seconds, and then you come outside and you wait for another 5 minutes for the women to come out. And that's represented on the layout, as you would in real life. We have one of the few celebrity cameos, Sheldon Cooper. I'm going to move him. I'm going to put him down with me and the staff member, so we're having a conversation down there. I put him in there so he blended in with other figures, but I think he just looks a little bit out of place. We have the couple. This is one of the Asian figures. She's with her fella, and they're talking to the staff member. We have the boy, who we shall not talk about. We shall move on. We then have these two gentlemen. Get a better angle on it. So these two gentlemen, the story is that they used to work together, they've not seen each other for ages, and then they've spotted each other on the platform. They come over and they're shaking hands, and his partner and everything. At the back, somewhat lurking a little bit suspicious, is a staff member who's been outside in the cold for ages by the exit to show people where to encourage people to actually go out through the way out which they've designated for the event. And he's freezing cold, so he's much more wrapped up than everyone else. And so it's like he's the other end of the extreme from the standard figure, which is just in shorts and t-shirt on a really hot day. He is the other end. He's kind of like Arctic sub-zero temperatures, fully wrapped up in a thick coat with a thick scarf and a hot hat, and his collar pulled up round his face and everything. He's freezing cold for some reason. But that's why he's there. Then we have next to this, we have the little girl who's posing for a photo in front of the Christmas tree, and Mum's taking a photo on her phone. And then we start to move down to the busier area. So I wanted to have carol singers on the layout. I also wanted to have a brass band. The best one I've seen is the one from Model U, but it's not cheap, and I haven't been able to justify the expense of that yet. I would like to put those on. Scale 3D don't have a huge range of musicians. It's one thing I'm quite surprised that they don't actually have a lot of. They got a girl playing a saxophone, which I thought was a little bit odd, but a guy playing an accordion, so I just went with the guy with the accordion. We then got the carol singers. The carol singers are Model U. Then trying to stand him up now because he just keeps falling over all the time. This is a 3D print of Rod Stewart. And actually it looks like Rod Stewart. I was quite surprised actually how much it actually resembles him. Tried to paint him up in some sort of like Christmas outfit similar to how you would see him. We then got people stood around like watching him as we singing and that. They got a lot more children being picked up so they can see. You got a guy, he's got coffee which he's just bought from the tea coffee stand, so she's got a drink as well. Then you got the hot roasted chestnuts stand. The woman who's selling stuff up there, she's come around the side. Obviously we're singing at the moment, but she's taking the money from the little girl. Taking that at the moment. We have one of the Batman figures, which I just put down here, so he'd be basically waving the train off. And then we've got people queuing up to use the tea and coffee one. So we've got a family here. I put another Santa figure down the other end of the platform as if he's waving to the children. So yes, there are two Santa figures on the layout, but one you can only really see, and the other one, about if you get told, and just imagining he's walked out and come down this end. He's very happy seeing Santa. He's taking his photo. And then you got the ladies who are selling their tea and coffee. So they've got coffee machines in there. There's a cash register in there. There is the little yellow thing which says oven fresh on it, and you're able to bring out the details with those acrylic pens. I need to make up something to go in those and try and look whether it looks like either like sausage rolls or something. It's one of the things to do. And then so you've got the ladies who are selling those, you've got this gentleman here who's just bought a coffee, the lady here, she's got a phone out ready to pay, and this lady here is sorting her cash out, and then she's going through her bag, getting ready to get her cash out and everything as well. So as you can see, all the figures kind of have a little sort of like story to go with it, and explain what goes on. And it's one thing I've quite enjoyed doing with this. There are, say, some more figures that I do have. Most of these are just more adults. I think I've got a couple that have got small children with them. Again, they all seem to be held, because it seems that a lot of times when people get themselves scanned, they pick up the child that's with them and hold them together to have themselves scanned, and then they become available for a range or whatever. But you can't really get figures of just children on their own that have actually been scanned. I don't know if there's a reason for it, but it's just something I've noticed. So again, a plea, please, someone do them. Make my life so much easier. And yeah, so I think that's about it really, as to what to talk today. What am I doing next? So we've got the actual drawing I mentioned beforehand about how when I did this, I did it over two of these wooden tables here. I got another one back there. They're exactly the same, and that's what I laid because these if you didn't know, these are, each bit is a bookshelf, and it's designed that it would go away onto a bookcase, which we can't see because it's buried behind the 36-foot long layout Sutton, which is a whole other story in itself. The idea being that you can make these little layouts up, install the shuttle so a train would run backwards and forwards, like a slow speed, whatever, just trying to make it basically have sort of like animated dioramas, and doing a whole like different load of them, N-gauge, O-gauge, or whatever, steam TMDs, steam sheds, good shed, sort of thing. All these little ideas, which will be done at some stage. But with this, it then evolved into me doing I was going to do it as a Christmas shuttle, just having it on this bit, and then like developed into me, I'm going to use a third board, and actually, which is what's up here, and have that as its little shuttle, the fiddle yard on the end, and basically make a layout of it. And that's how this layout developed. When I laid the track, it was flat across the two tables, but when I then went to, after I'd laid the track and done all the work, and then went and put it down onto the tables, which I was then working off before I cleared all this room in the garage, I put those out and found it just didn't sit flat together at all, and you can't actually push the boards up fully close together because of how the track is. I can't do anything about that. Now that is as it is. They use I think the Train Tech rail aligners, I think they're called, which are perfectly good, and they line things up really well. But you kind of need to make sure your track is right when you glue it, because otherwise it doesn't matter because they will realign it exactly how you put it in, and if you haven't got it right, well, you're kind of buggered, as I am. So I made up this quite large gap, which is a little bit unsightly between the boards. Managed to disguise it quite well with the scenery and stuff. There is like a little gap there, which I added a tuft into there, but every time when I then take it apart and transport it, it gets knocked off and stuff. Same with potentially putting another tuft in here, just to try and blend that a little bit. And I then tried to hide the join a little bit by putting the fence along there, which is something I was going to do anyway. But how I actually designed the join that was where I was going to put the break in of the platform anyway, because that's where it made most logical sense to do it on the board anyway. What I have, so on this end, so you've got the fence comes up to the column, whatever that is, the bit of the wall on the end here, and then the brick wall goes down the base of here down to the bridge itself, and same on that side. I don't have the fence at the moment carry on up the hill. I kind of think I should, but rather than me put a fence in there, I'm probably going to put a bit more vegetation in, so some more like brambles and stuff along the actual edge of the hill here, coming up to the top. And what I'm going to use for those is I've got, again, some more stuff from Green Stuff World. We have these products, these tall shrubberies there. We have this stuff, ivy sort of things, and We've got some more greeny sort of shrubbery here as well. So kind of using a little bit of those, and then same sort of techniques I've done before. We then sprinkle some of these micro leaves on top of them as well, and blending them in with the snow stuff to give that effect. So that's kind of what I wanted to do, and maybe put in a couple more down here along this fence a little bit. I don't want to put too much in there because it's going to make things difficult to actually see when people get down, because I did find people, because the height I have it layouts, I've got the layout at a height so everyone can see it. I understand why people put their layouts higher at exhibitions, because it's kind of better for the viewing height of stuff, but then you eliminate children can't necessarily see without getting on the stools, and even then they can't see, but then when they're pulling themselves up, they're then reaching up and grabbing hold of the layout and everything, and I finally feel that this causes issues in itself. But because this is a layout that is predominantly for children and families, I want everyone to be able to see it, so it sits at the height of what it's at pretty much now. Which means that people then end up, they look at the height, so I can imagine that sort of like their viewing angle, but then they kind of like squat down and have a look and stuff, and then they're getting down low to try and see underneath things. If I'm like saying, oh yeah, you've got these like signs on the canopy and that, and these people on the platform and they're looking down for it, but then I go put a bush in here, well then I've just completely ruined the effect and the time I've spent doing it. So I have to try and think about before I start doing things. Okay, so that's I'm gonna do this. How does it work? Have a look at it. Look at your viewing height stuff, and just thinking about all these different things before you then end up spending ages working on something, and then a couple of weeks later you do an exhibition and stuff, and you realise people aren't seeing the little things you've put out on there. I've got some cats and dogs. I'm not going to go overboard on that, but potentially I'll put a dog or two, because any time you go to these railway events now, people have to now take their dogs along with them all the time, and that's just become a common thing. I have the station cat on here somewhere, whether or not she be down in this area where it's nice and quiet. Because I didn't mention about these barriers. These I got off eBay. I ordered those on Wednesday last week. By Friday morning they were here. And yeah, painted up and on the layout rapidly, and I think they look fantastic. They're really good. Again, I'll stick a link to those into the description as well, and that was just to separate. So again, I mentioned about it's been a heritage railway in its first year. They started with a signal box and they restored that. They had that open on open days. They then managed to raise enough money to buy the station building and the platform, and have put in a running line, a short little running demonstration line, which goes off down under the road for a very short distance. And I have to imagine there's a shed down there, or just a little siding or something, whether they can stable the locos and service them and whatever what they have, and that's basically it. But having it so that yes, they've acquired this, but they've just put in restored enough for the platform to be able to run the small trains they have, because effectively it is a line that has a small tank engine, a brake van, and in this case a coach. I kind of vary up some of the stuff which I run at exhibitions and stuff, but effectively you're thinking that's it. Look at something like the Tanat Valley line that effectively only has a pacer and a really short demo line, or as it was at the weekend, the Whitwell and Reepham have a very short running line. That railway, they have the station and the platforms, but they don't have any track going into the platforms because they don't own that bit of land yet. And very sort of similar to how that is, where it goes down a short little demonstration line. And funnily enough, the brake van which I run on this is the exact same brake van which was doing brake van rides at Whitwell and Reepham on Sunday anyway. And then eventually in time they will then extend the line on beyond where it is now, restore the platform which that needs to be done at that end, and then put in a running loop. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the plans to do going forwards is to do this layout, doing this layout again, but modelling Abbott Darcy station again, but in say 5-10 years time in the future. So time has gone by, they've raised more money, they've managed to acquire some heritage grants, some lottery grants, and have been able to develop this station further. So it will be done in N-gauge, so it will sit on an exact same set tables what this is on. So it's two 2x4 tables, 2x8, and it will allow me to model the whole of the station in full relief, with the whole platform in, a running loop in, Again, signal box, the exact same one because you can get it in N-gauge as well. Same with the bridge, and having a little bit of that demonstration line. Excuse me. So it goes off into the distance, and having some of the local buildings like a church or something around it, and then that would then run around to the back to the fiddle yard, which is going to be an interchangeable fiddle yard, which basically I will use for a lot of different N-gauge layouts, which was going to be for the Erdington Station one I'm doing, and the Honeysuckle Cottage, which is going to be in that there. So I think that basically concludes it. I've been talking for an hour now. Hoping the video is not going to be an hour. I'm going to try and trim it down and edit out a lot of my waffle. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I say it was quite a big update since the last one, but I wanted this to make sure this was all done and then have it kind of like the big reveal and actually putting it out at the exhibition at Whitwell and Reetham. So this will be going out to Derby in the first weekend of December at Famous Trains. It's definitely going on the Saturday and Sunday. It might be there the Monday, depends what I'm doing with work at the time. And then the weekend after is a layout at Clacton-on-Sea, which it may be going to. I'm just waiting on confirmation. That's Dawn Quest's exhibition. And the second weekend of December. And then the third weekend, I'm going to take it over to Great Eastern Models and have it up in the shop there. So it'll be able to be seen a few different areas. And then I say that then it'll effectively be put up on the shelves up here. And say covered up, ready for when it ever needs to go out again. It may be out in May, I think, maybe next year, an exhibition. and wait for its confirmation. But the main thing going forward is going to be start working on the N-gauge stuff. That's going to be what I'll be wanting to be concentrating on for the latter part of the year and moving into 2026. Now, speaking about 2026, what you can't see is in here. Let's see if I can put this out a little bit bigger. There we go. Behind all that lot, down here, in there, stacked up on two, stacked up in two down there, and down there is the 36 foot long by 2 foot long, 2 foot wide, you'll say, former large exhibition layout, Sutton, which was formerly owned by the Biggleswade Model Railway Club. I've shared some links and some stuff about it in the past. This is all here. None of it has really been out of its packing crate yet because I didn't want to take anything out and then find a situation where I couldn't figure out how to get it back in. At the moment, the key was that they basically needed a new home for this layout. And if no one was to come forward, they were going to have to scrap it. They couldn't store it any longer. If they were going to scrap it, they would have to pay to have it scrapped because of how big it is and the materials and anything. And anyway, I came forward and said, no, I'd be interested. At the time, I was becoming more active with the Spalding Model Railway Club. The plan was to join them. I thought, yes, great. I'll join with the club. I can acquire this layout. I'm more than happy to store it. Might be able to do something with them. There'll be a team of people to be able to operate it. I'll have contacts who can help with renovating and testing it and making sure it's all okay. And that is still the plan to go forwards. The only issue being is they like to have their membership fee paid in a single payment, and I've not been able to afford that for the last couple of months. But anyway, cutting through a lot of the chaff, it has a booking. It is booked for Spalding 2026. Between now and November 2026, I need to basically get it out, get it working, and get it tested. And that's going to involve me getting the funds sorted to join the Spalding Club, transporting it over there, getting things going, potentially seeing if we can maybe have a place there where it can be stored, set up places where we can actually be able to test and run things and do a lot more of it. It's a double O layout, it's a beautiful layout, it really is. My priority was making sure that I saved it and it was not going to scrap and stuff. So that is where that's at. So I just wanted to mention that a little bit towards the end. But so yeah, that is Abbott Darcy. A little more of the zoomed out shot. So as always, thank you for watching and goodbye for now.